on this episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Why must I not be angry? Do I have to go through my entire life not experiencing a very human emotion called anger? I mean, do I need to go to the hospital and have an angerectomy? Do I need to have the anger police come and arrest me and put me in anger jail? Hey, this is Dr. Heath. That's just a little display that most people think should not be allowed in relationships because others think that it is so threatening. Today, we're going to tackle one of our high-value targets. What's the problem with anger? Coming up next.
Welcome to Therapy Bites Art Lab, where Dr. Heath and his special guests share real-life stories of helping and healing. Fresh from the actual therapy couch, while taking a bite out of common counseling missteps and misconceptions. And now, here's Heath and the T-Ball team.
Well, pardon me very much. Excuse my anger. You know, humans have a actually small set of emotions. I know there are memes out there where humans have more names for emotion than some cultures have names for snowflakes, but that just confuses issues. Here at the Art Lab, we typically talk about 10: happy, sad, mad, glad, disgusted, ashamed, stressed, depressed, anxious, and anger. That's right. The worst one of them all.
Heaven forbid.
But is it? I mean, aren't there things in life that merit, that deserve to be angry at? Childhood starvation, childhood abuse. I don't want to get political here, but not valuing the planet we live on enough to take care of it. I mean, it is our home after all. I mean, we're not going to Mars just yet. But what are we going to do to Mars if that's our home planet? But back to anger, what is so evil about anger? And people talk about managing anger and treating anger and sending people to anger management. And look, give poor anger a break. It is an emotion. That doesn't mean it's dangerous. It is an emotion. It doesn't even mean it's deadly. We can get that in a little bit. But today we have in the studio, in the Art Lab studio as we call it, which is where we explore accurate, realistic thinking, life-affirming beliefs. We encourage you to join in and share this out to others if you believe it might be helpful to those others who are struggling with catastrophizing anger. We have Gamer Girl Heather,
Hey guys.
who is drinking out of her Halloween Artie mug.
Very nice.
And our brave squirrel girl, Sarah.
Hey.
You know, I don't know what I'm going to call myself. I guess I just call myself Doc Heath. It's less to remember. I'm not sure what my mascot is. Today, by the way, my mascot is none other than Soren Kierkegaard. We'll get back to him in a minute. All right, let's talk about some real life, concrete level, shoe leather experiences with anger that you guys have had.
Okay, and I think when people talk about anger, a lot of times they really get the behavior mixed up with the emotion. So some of the things that, you know, you'll see with the behavior with anger, yes.
I'm not angry. I'm making a face.
No, you'll see, you know, if somebody closes the door louder than somebody would prefer, or if somebody's using more, which we talked about this in a previous episode, somebody's using more, you know, hand movements than somebody would prefer, or talking at a louder yes, exactly like that. Talking in a louder tone of voice than somebody would prefer, or a tone of voice they don't like, you know, just automatically assuming that this behavior means that this person is angry. But not only that they're angry at me. So I'm catastrophizing and I'm mind reading.
You know, I think that's an important point, that anger can exist and not be rifled or targeted toward an individual. And I don't think it is. I mean, a behavior can be targeted toward an individual. For instance, I might throw this cup at Heather, who is across from me, by the way. You can't tell on camera unless you're looking at our
I'll give us an
bird's eye
overhead
view
cam.
camera.
Yeah, there we go.
But I wouldn't do that because then I'd waste my coffee, and then it's just rude to throw your coffee at people. But you can direct behavior, but can you direct an emotion? Is emotion really directable?
Mm-hmm.
Can you rifle it down a barrel at somebody? Many people think that.
They really do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's all kinds of problems with that, and one of those is our little lovely gnat, that's N-A-T, our mind-reading gnat, our mind-reading negative automatic thought. How would you know that someone is angry with you unless you ask them? I mean, can they simply not be can they not simply just be angry, and they're just angry in general? They're not angry at somebody in particular. Anger does not have to be directional. It can just be a experience of an emotion. And I'm not even angry about what happened. It was cool. We have a overhead TV that we stream our episodes so that our lovely crew on the other side of the room can see what the heck is going on. And the stupid technomolology, as my son and I used to watch Hulk and the Agents of Smash. And who doesn't love Hulk? He turns green when he gets angry, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's my
He's
color.
always angry.
That's my
Yeah.
color.
That's his secret.
That's his secret. That's one of my most famous movie quotes. How'd you tackle that? How'd you do with your anger? I'm always angry. Then he smashes the alien spaceship. But it's just something that happened. I find it interesting, and we won't get into tips right now about dealing with the thoughts that produce anger. That is where anger comes from.
Right.
It doesn't come from stubbing your big toe. You can stub your big toe and not be angry. Or if you want to be angry, you can be angry. But anger is produced by how you decide to think of events, situations, circumstances, such as stubbing your big toe. If you want to be angry less, then you can decide to catastrophize less. Less catastrophizing, addressing things with more curiosity. Well, less of these heavy-duty, heavy-lifting emotions like anger. Or you can be angry, but that doesn't have to be directional. You can be angry, and that's all there is to it. Imagine developing a mindset around people that you perceive to be angry or not as letting them. I mean, unless they're presenting themselves as a threat to you, unless they're presenting themselves as a threat to your property, unless they're doing something illegal or immoral, why do they have to go through, as I did on my little blurb starting the episode? That was fun. I warned my crew. I said, I'm really going to emote. And I still held back a little bit. I could have raised my voice more. But why do they have to go through their entire life having excised one of the 10 most basic emotions with which we are engineered to be able to experience? What other emotions do you want to delete? Maybe I have to go through life not being depressed, not being anxious. I mean, that really leaves me with happy and glad. And if somebody runs over my foot, having excised the others, and you say, hey, Doc, how do you feel? Happy. Because that's the only emotion left to me other than glad. I guess I could feel glad. But when you start chopping off emotions, it really truncates or narrows all of human experience. I mean, I think that'd be a really terrible thing to do.
Right. And I mean, when you're talking about anger can be a really good motivator for example, if you have a family who learns that something horrible has happened to their child, that anger is what can help them get to the point where they, go to the police, go through the court system, go, all of those different things. It's like it would be very concerning if there wasn't anger in those kind of situations.
Well, and speaking of which, I love one of my other favorite quotes is Mufasa. I mean, anger helps you defend your territory. It's kind of a motivator. You want to challenge my family, challenge my kid, present yourself as a danger. Is that a challenge?
Yes.
I mean, you can turn in, Mama Bear turns into, Papa Bear turns into Mufasa, two Mufasas. And yes, it can be very motivating, very stimulating. Imagine somebody seeking to harm you or yours, and you're back to having deleted, if you had a big delete key, anxiety, delete, sad, delete, disgusted, delete. That'd be a terrible one to delete, by the way.
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah, if you know what happens if you delete disgust?
I
mean, my mind reels with all kinds of imagery.
Yeah, you just don't have like any more, like, if you come across something that's really gross, it won't bother you anymore. So
That's
like,
right.
you could just.
So you go to the food buffet.
Yeah.
And you notice they want to charge you $30. Mm-hmm. But you can just go in the restroom and everything in the toilet is for free.
Oh, no.
No disgust mechanism, you wind up doing disgusting things. Yeah. But you won't know that since you're incapable of disgust. Anger, delete. But there's all kinds of things with which to be angry about. And there's our technology going on again. I'm going to have to turn off the overhead.
I think that's a good
because
idea.
Our TV keeps on wanting to not stream what we want. It has a mind of its own. It's just what Elon Musk is warning us of. AI is going to be more dangerous than nuclear weapons. Anger is not a curse. Anger is not dangerous, and that's what we're here talking about today. What about, do you ladies ever struggle with what to do with anger? It can be quite a handful.
Yeah. Absolutely. You want to go first?
Sure.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. I used to kind of be more prone to anger. It was more comfortable to be angry, and thinking about it now, it was more of just, I don't know, all emotion, what am I trying to say? Like, all emotion is important, but like if I was feeling sad, or if I was feeling kind of ashamed, or had that just anxiety, it was uncomfortable. And so it was easier, I thought at the time, which I know is better now, it's not congruent, so it's not good, but I thought that being angry and lashing out at people would be better, and that, that was a better way to handle the situation for some reason, which is not. Now I find I've kind of turned almost like 180, where I almost shy away from it, and I'm even afraid to be assertive at times because I don't want to come across angry. And so it's something that I'm working on, to where it's like assertiveness is fine, and that's actually good. It's better to be assertive than aggressive, and assertive than passive, but trying to figure out where that line between assertive and aggressive is something that I'm still working on.
Well, I think that's a great way to kind of segue into the next part of the episode, because anger and aggression are two very different things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hope to portray on the opening blurb, which if you missed it, go back and watch it. You can go to YouTube and actually see my face get red and everything. And I mean, I tried to make it red. I should have got some, rouge or something to put on my face, and I have to wipe it off. But what I was trying to explain or get across was that all you saw in that blurb was behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I was not angry when I did that. That was behavior. Here's something to keep your noodle working late at night. Emotions are invisible. You will never, never, never be able to see an emotion, because that happens in the synapses between the neurons and in neural networks hidden in the vault of the skull. All you can see is behavior. When you say you're angry to a person, what you're really doing is trying to interpret behavior, and you could be wrong. What's that mean? I'm wiggling my pinky finger in the air to those that are just listening. What is this wiggling my pinky finger? What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. I made that up. It's simply wiggling a pinky finger. You cannot extrapolate nicely, neatly, always from a behavior to an emotion. Moreover, the emotion is never the problem. Or it would be illegal. You'd have courts full of people sentenced or being tried, and the evidence would attempt to prove they were, in fact, angry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Heath, is it not true that on October the 27th, at whatever time, that you were angry? As you can tell, that it's you'll get this episode after October 27th. We do these things in advance and edit. Heather does a lot of great editing. She has a lot of skill at that, and Sarah helps out, and then I just try to stay out of it. But there's no anger police. Emotions are never the problem. Stop beating up on your emotions. Experience them. The healthiest thing you can do with your emotions, experience them, but engage in healthy behavior. Feel what you feel and choose healthy behavior. It is only behaviors that can be illegal, not the emotion. You say people have an anger problem? There's no such thing as an anger problem, because an emotion can never be the problem. Are they difficult? Yes, and they're meant to be. Imagine if anger wasn't difficult.
Right.
You know, you blow out your birthday candle cakes or open your Christmas gifts, and someone would say, well, what do you think about your gift? Well, I'm angry at it. Isn't that wonderful? I'm so angry at it. I can't believe you thought of me. I'm angry every time I get what I want. It would be so much ridiculosity. New word there. But anger can never be the problem. Do you run into people that often catastrophize anger?
This podcast is HIPAA compliant. No identifying patient information will be disclosed without permission from patients or guardians. All personal stories will be de-identified in order to comply with HIPAA, the NASW Code of Ethics, and the ethical principles of psychologists and Code of Conduct.
Hey T-Ballers, fresh from the therapy couch, we bring you stories of strength and resilience. And today's story is related to a whole host of patients who have come into the therapy office and said things like, we just can't disagree. We just can't be angry at each other. And what they're talking about is they have an intolerance to expressing when they have anger or displeasure or irritation. The view is that having these things is a threat to our relationship. Well, not so fast. Emotions are also on their own simply events, situations, and circumstances. And we as humans, having free will, we get to decide what to think about someone else's displeasure, what to think about someone else's irritation. If we catastrophize it, then we're telling our brain it is a threat to us, and that's not necessarily the case. If someone is a threat to you, then you should protect yourself. If they're becoming assaultive, then 911 should be called. Otherwise, do you realize that people can safely experience the emotions of anger, irritation, displeasure, and everybody still stays safe? Just something to think about.
You're listening to Therapy Bites Art Lab, bite-sized therapy for your brain with Dr. Heath and the T-Ball team. The best advice on the net. No copay required.
Today's secret psych disorder, deep from the dark recesses beneath the therapy couch, angrophobia. Be careful of anger. If you're in the presence of an angry person, well, you may just melt. Well, not so much, but it is a real life phobia. Just as people are sometimes have a phobia of heights, or a phobia of snakes, or a phobia of the number 13. What's that called? Tridecaphobia, I think it is. People have a phobia of anger. And what is that? That is a cognitive framework where a person believes that someone else's anger is literally a threat to them. Luckily, cognitive science has cures for that, and it begins with thinking about your thinking, cognitive restructuring. And that's what our episode is on today. So we'll get back to that episode.
Here's Heath and the T-Ball team.
Something that I see people get confused, and even I myself am working on, is confusing passion with anger. So like if somebody is really passionate about something and they're getting really into the conversation, they're like, well, if you, I'm going to say something potentially controversial here, if you would just play Ocarina of Time, you might have more appreciation for, Breath of the Wild, which are two different video games. I'm a nerd. But,
Y'all have started speaking Latin. I have no idea what they just said.
Which I love both of those games. But if somebody's getting really passionate about something, they're not actually angry. They're just sharing their opinion, and they're sharing that they really have a lot of appreciation for whatever it is they're talking about.
That's one of the first things I started pointing out, and I used to use a video of a congressional hearing where a astrophysicist, I think it was an astrophysicist, he was testifying before Congress about how we need to prepare ourselves to go to Mars, and he wanted, like we're talking these days about humans to be a multi-planetary species, which, I don't know. Maybe that's not a bad idea. Better to have plan B. Don't put all your eggs in one planet, so to speak. But he was very passionate, but what the senator questioning him pointed out was, don't you come here bringing your anger to us. Mm-hmm. Well, he was interpreting a behavior which really, to me, indicated passion. This was this scientist's life work. Mm-hmm. What did we expect him to do? Walk up and say, hey, Senator, how's it hanging? We're talking about going to Mars. You want to go, we go. You don't want to go, we don't go. Either way's fine. Well, no, I mean, he's very passionate about it. Here, have some of what I'm smoking. No, I mean, he's very passionate about it. Why wouldn't it be? But that's not anger. And it's really easy to mind read again right. And to catastrophize. Why? Well, a couple reasons. We've been taught that anger is dangerous. Anger is not dangerous. No one ever died of anger. Mm-mm. Behavior can be dangerous. If you come at me with a toaster oven, I will no be there, as Mr. Miyagi would say. How you avoid a fight, you no be there. A toaster oven headed my way, I no be there. But anger can never hurt me. But we've been taught this from the time we were, as we say in the South, yay high, very little. And it's really stuck in our collective psyche. The other reason is pattern-based. We get used to a certain pattern. To the human brain, patterns equal safety. You like to go home, walk into your living room, and look around, and all your furniture's being rearranged and it's upside down. No, you don't like that. You like to walk in, even almost with your eyes closed, and know exactly where you can plant your rear end. And it might be very disturbing to you to have your living room furniture rearranged because you view that as a pattern shift, and the human brain views pattern shifts as dangerous. Pattern shifts aren't necessarily dangerous, though they can be alerting, and then we have to decide if the shift in pattern is dangerous to us. The presence of anger is a pattern shift. When someone experiences a pattern shift in front of me, for instance, if I noticed a lot of behavior from Heather across from me, since I just threatened to throw my coffee mug at her, what am I going to do? I'm going to start looking at her hands because she's not close enough to headbutt me. I'll start looking at her hands. If she has her own coffee mug, which she does, but I think she likes it, so she's not going to throw it. But if she had a weapon or a toaster oven and rear back to throw it, well, then that's more data. That's more evidence. But again, it's not her anger doing that. It is her arms and hands that's presenting the threat to me, not the anger. Be angry, but be healthy. Mm-hmm. Our mantra for the episode today that you can steal from us, please steal these concepts. Yes. And then send us 50 cents in the mail for every time. No, I'm kidding. They're free. Steal these concepts, implement them in your life because they will change your life. We first engineer our thinking, and then our thinking engineers our life. We can both be angry and be healthy. That's our message today. Be angry, but be healthy. And then if you don't want to be angry as much, identify the thoughts and beliefs which are manufacturing your anger. You know, I was recently at a heretofore unnamed place of business. I think I said in one episode, I'll tell it again here just because I think it's cool, to get 5,000 pounds of concrete. Mm-hmm. That's right. I needed, why I needed that is top secret. I can't say it or I'd have to get angry and kill everybody. But it's 5,000 pounds of concrete. And the worker, after we're out there ready to load it up, said, "Have you paid for that?" Well, no, I've not paid for it. I got out of line to come load it up. You know, one person here, one guy can't do two things at once. No, you got to come in and pay for it, which I like to find comedy in things. And I said, you know, I pointed out, is there a rash of concrete thefts in the area that I don't know about? I mean, is this a big deal? You know, local businesses robbed blind of concrete, 5,000 pounds of it. Hurry, police, chase him down. He's getting away with 5,000, that's 2.5 tons, by the way, of concrete, but he's not going very fast. You can stop and get a donut because he's only able to drive 20 miles an hour because he has 5,000 pounds of concrete. I catastrophized that all over the place. And I don't know that I would say angry as much as on the verge of it, irritated. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But why can't I be? Why can I not be irritated or angry? I was safely irritated and angry and harmed no one. I managed my behavior by managing my thinking. And we'll get to that in a minute. What have you guys found some nifty ways to manage emotions, which we can't do directly, but by decatastrophizing, which is managing your thinking?
I think a big one that I found is helpful is thinking about how important is this going to be in the next 5 minutes, the next, day, the next week, the next year. Is this something that really requires? So if we're talking about, maybe an argument or something with my husband, how important is this little thing going to be in a year? Is it really worth, anything like that? And also, what am I telling myself about this situation? It's probably not a danger. It's probably just a minor irritation, or I'm perceiving it as a minor irritation,
Yeah. On a scale of 0 to 10, how big a deal is it?
Probably a -1.
Yeah. Or a -0.002.
Yeah.
Or something. It can be it can be on the scale, as we call it at the art lab, the catastrophe scale. Mm-hmm. But it's not a 10. And I think it's so interesting Sarah picks 5 minutes. I actually think that's adorable because of her age. You see, people my age, I will think not about 5 minutes, but when I'm a little old man sitting toothless, hopefully not toothless, I brush my teeth twice a day, whether I need to or not, sometimes more, in a decrepit position. I'll be talking about, I remember the time I was getting the 5,000 pounds of concrete. And what a story it is to tell. Well, I look ahead and I think, am I really, at the end of my life, going to say something like, goodness gracious, my life would have been such full of meaning and joy if not for the freaking concrete episode.
Stay tuned for 40 years from now on the podcast when Dr. Heath will bring that back up.
If not for the freaking concrete catastrophe, I would have had a happy life. And you can do that little psychology trick in your life is ask yourself, at the end of your life, if you are given another year of life, a year, 365 days total, would you take it even if you had to go through that thing you've catastrophized every single day? And I would. If at the end of my life you're going to give me another year to spend with my family, even if I've got to go to this place of business and go through this rigmarole, which took, I think, 2 hours, I'll invest that 2 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Another way to look at it is hardship breeds, grows, develops resilience. Mm-hmm. You will be stronger by encountering hard things than you will if we just put you in a rubber room and fed you popsicles and ice cream 4 times a day and protected you from all hardship. If you want to be resilient, you have to encounter hard things.
Right. Yeah. And something that I've used is what I can control versus what I can't control. So kind of focusing on the situation. Is it something that I can control and that I can change, or is it something that's out of my control? And if it is something that's out of my control, just be like, well, kind of what Sarah does, like, is it worth it? You know, is it worth getting upset over? Is it worth, is it going to be something that I really need to gnash my teeth and dig my feet in and just go for it? Or is it something that, it'll be fine. It's not worth it.
Right. So, like, for example, you know, if there's a plan to go to the river in the summer and it just, the sky opens up and there's a thunderstorm, you know, that's something we have zero control over. And it, in the moment, it may seem easy to just get really frustrated and be like, man, I was looking forward to this trip. And now, you know, but it's like, that's not going to change the weather. And you can probably find something else fun to do. Maybe y'all could just do a game day and push it off. You know, there's more Saturdays in a summer than just one, you know. Try to think of it that way instead of, oh my gosh, you know, my summer is ruined. This trip that I planned, you know, that never really gets you anywhere.
No. And sometimes even if you, like, are really looking forward to it and you push the matter, no matter what it is, whether it's a trip and the weather's bad, or you have something that you want to get but you can't at the moment because maybe it's, you know, too expensive or whatever, you try to move around things and try to make it happen. Sometimes it's worse off than if you actually just waited because, you know, you end up like maybe having a bad time at the river or whatever, or like it does get really bad and you can't, you know, you get stuck under a overhang, or you just can't get on the river, like maybe it's closed down, or like you made, you know, it's something can happen that no matter how hard you push and try to get it to work, it just doesn't. And it'd be better, like Sarah said, if at the beginning of the trip, instead of trying to push it to make it work or getting upset and angry about it, if you just went and like, well, what else can we do?
Or even if you do get angry about it, it doesn't mean you have to do anything that moment about the anger. You can just sit there with it and be like, man, I'm so disappointed. Because, you know, it's okay to be disappointed. You know, I'm so disappointed. But don't stay there.
Yeah.
You find something better to do with your time, because trust me, you know, there's much better things to do than just sit around and think about what you can't do.
Well, and that itself is a pattern shift, because you've created a pattern in which going to the river or doing this, that, or the other has become your planned pattern. And when you're unable to engage in that pattern, your brain perceives the pattern shift, lack of that pattern realization, as a threat to you. Hence, therefore, that is disappointment or even anger, which is kind of disappointment plus disappointment deluxe leads to anger. The question is, well, but what way am I choosing to perceive it? If we finally, as humans, get to the point, which is a pretty high point, by the way, not an easy task, of realizing that all we have in life are moments. That is it. Just moments. From the poorest to the richest. No matter how much more money you have, you cannot increase moments to your life. Now, those moments vary widely. Some end at 40, 17, 20, 68, 97 years old, that is. But all we each have are moments. Therefore, and stick with me on this, each and every moment has inherent value. It's just up to us to find the value in the moment. And one way of doing that, hello? Hello. My name is Soren Kierkegaard. Soren here, Kierkegaard here, is one of my favorite philosophers. And Viktor Frankl, another favorite philosopher, psychiatrist, existentialist, borrowed this from Kierkegaard. A lot of people don't know that, when he said there's a space between stimulus and response. And it is in that space that we are able to respond. We encourage you, we here at the Art Lab, encourage you to use that space to decide your response. Embrace your anger, but respond in that space in a healthy way. Now, right before we run out of time, we're running a little bit over, but we think this is an important concept. We've talked about how to deal with our own thoughts producing anger. A quick thought or two before we close out the show today. How do I manage my thinking when it's someone else that's angry?
Ooh, that's a good question. Once again, it definitely comes down to what I'm thinking. You know, if somebody else is angry, first of all, a lot of times we assume it's about us. It's probably not about you. Maybe they stubbed their toe this morning and it still really hurts. Maybe they got some bad news at work. Maybe they lost a pet or something, you know. Just curious. We talk about this a lot.
Maybe they're constipated.
Yeah, they might be constipated. Or have the other problem. We won't go into that. That's why we have the disgust cortex. Anyways.
That can be quite explosive.
Oh, dear.
Problem.
Let's steer away from that.
Rapid evacuation.
Oh, my gosh.
Explosive evacuation.
I just lost my train of thought.
I wonder why.
Any thoughts, Heather?
Yeah.
Let me throw it to you.
Toss it to somebody else. I'm thinking about the rapid evacuation.
Oh, I think it also has to do with like going back to that, what we can control, what we can't control. If they are upset and they are having a bad day or they're angry, you can't miraculously change that because you don't have like we've talked about, you don't have a remote control of their brain. You're not Plankton sitting up on SpongeBob's head with those levers.
That's
trying
funny.
to
I
make
remember that episode.
Yeah, that episode. Like you don't have that option. Like you don't have a little you in their head. So
that'd be scary.
That would be, yeah. So you can't control, and even if they are angry, accepting it and just letting them be angry as long as they're doing it in a healthy way. Like if they're not, you always have the chance, the choice to, take a time out, leave,
call 911.
Call 911. Yeah.
It's very dangerous.
If it's a dangerous situation, call 911. If they're just upset and it's making you uncomfortable,
don't
you
start
can just
calling 911 every time someone's angry. That would get old. But that's the same thing with, you can take Kierkegaard, famous existentialist philosopher here. Now, finger puppet, I'm not sure if he'd be crazy about that. You can take that space between stimulus, a person being angry, which you may not know they're angry. Maybe I've had people tell me, I see you look like you're angry. No, I'm just very sad. Well, I mean, do people not get a right to label their own emotions?
Yeah.
That's why I try not to mind read. But what I do is realize that anger is not illegal. It is not necessarily threatening. If I want to be able to experience my emotions, the greatest respect I can show them is to observe and be present while they experience their emotions, as long as I'm safe. You're not throwing the toaster oven at me, that kind of thing. Because, I mean, it's a free country, and I don't want someone telling me I don't want to tell somebody they can't be angry, because one of these days they may pass a law, and this is my gas tape mug. It stands for government approved speech. That's right, gas tape mug, government approved speech. That they may pass a law where I can't be angry and I can't say things I want to say. Do I believe in being courteous? Absolutely. Never sacrifice your character by speaking in a way that doesn't honor who you are. Don't sacrifice your character and integrity by speaking in a way that doesn't honor who you are. If someone treats you discourteously, they have already sacrificed their character in doing so. You don't have to return in kind and sacrifice your character. But imagine government-approved speech tape that every time someone becomes angry and starts saying things we don't want them to hear, we call the gas police, and they come and wrap gas tape around their mouth, and they can't say what they want to say because they can't say what they're wanting to say because you think it is harmful to you. Well, when the proverbial shoe's on the other foot, you may be the one that gets gas taped.
Right.
Therefore, be respectful of those people and just be present and allow them to experience their own emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be supportive, and you can say things using the IVP technique. I identify. You look like you're angry. I mean, I could be wrong, but you appear to be angry. Validate. Well, based on how you're thinking, you have every right to be angry if you choose to be angry. And then process. Talk it out, talk it out, talk it out, talk it out. Because if you've ever seen a crock pot, not a crock pot, pressure cooker, fixing up my kitchen tools. If you have a pressure cooker, you're kind of serving as a little steam valve on top. And by processing, instead of catastrophizing, you're allowing them to get that steam out as long as we can do it safely.
Right.
Now, if you start aiming some type of threat where I'm not safe, or the toaster oven, then we're going to have, or destroying property, that's a problem. But usually that's not the case. Other thoughts before we close out today? Helpful tips?
I always think of LSD, not the drug.
Yes, use LSD.
Oh yes, no. I'm not encouraging drug use. No, just the whole concept of lower, slower, deeper. Just making sure you don't get to the same level that person is, because then it becomes just they may not be yelling, but we've got elevated voice versus elevated voice, and they may not really listen to you as well. But if you can keep this nice calm tone, lower, slower, and deeper, and just talk them through it, using that approach Dr. Heath just talked about. You don't have to actually be calm on the inside. You can actually do this and still be anxious on the inside. That's perfectly fine. But just keeping that tone at a level that's helpful to that person.
And if you can't, taking that time out and just kind of coming back to the situation after maybe you have calmed down a little bit more, or even if after both of you've calmed down, so that way you can have that discussion where you both know that you're not going to be at that upper level if you can't use lower, slower, deeper. That's
right. Use the space between the stimulus and the response. Thank you all for joining us today. Catch us next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's Creature Feature. And this time we're featuring the mind reading gnat. We've talked about him a little bit in this episode. He likes to try to tell us that we can read other people's minds. We can look at them and just automatically know what they're thinking about us, or just thinking in general. But that's not always the case. We can't look at someone and know if they're angry with us or if they're looking at us weird. Maybe they're, they've got some thoughts that against us or something. No, that's not always the case. In fact, typically it's never the case. But if we use ARTI and have accurate, realistic thoughts and use accurate, realistic thinking, we can tell ourselves that, hey, this person, they may look angry and they may be looking at us angry, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're angry with us. So instead of trying to listen to the little gnat telling us exactly what they're trying to tell us, exactly what they're thinking about us or about things in general, listen to ARTI, have accurate, realistic thoughts, and think about things as they are. I hope you have a good day and use accurate, realistic thinking. Bye, guys.
Hey, T-Ballers. Thanks so much for being with us today. If we brought value to your day, show us some love by leaving your positive feedback and inviting some friends to listen in and join the T-Ball team. Next time on Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Isn't not knowing just the most awful thing? Aren't we safer when we do know? Isn't it a catastrophe, like catastrophizing Ann here, when we don't know? Today we'll talk about the psychology of not knowing and what we call opening loops and closing loops. That's next, the psychology of not knowing.